Hello Internet, this is Micah from Capture King Gaming here with part 5 of 5 for the What Remains of Edith Finch walkthrough.
Lewis and I spent a lot of time playing games together, but he was surprisingly bad at them. He died a lot.
Is that the Dream Station NES I've always wanted? It's a weird piece of hardware right there.
On the way back from Lewis's funeral, my mom told me to start packing. She waited until the day before we left to tell Edie. I'm not sure if she wanted to make it easier or harder. I wish we'd stayed. But I understand why we left. My mom ended up leaving everything behind. What happened that night had been coming for a long time. Maybe it should have come sooner. But it had to end one way or another. All that's left now is to tell you about that last night. That whole last day, Edie just watched us pack and didn't say a word. Until supper, when she raised her glass and said,
"To our final night together, and all our final nights apart."
Grandma, you know what I said about alcohol. Some of your medications are very
Edith,
specific.
I left a present for you in the hallway. Why don't you go open it? The grown-ups have to argue now.
I'm sorry, you're right. We're all leaving tomorrow. Let's just enjoy our last...
I'm not leaving.
Edith, you're excused.
the power had been shut off that morning, but Edie always had plenty of candles. When my mom sealed the library, I don't think she knew about the other entrance. Or that Edie had a key to it.
That thing you're afraid of isn't going to end when you leave the house. Edith has a right to know these stories.
My children are dead because of your stories. I think it's best if Edith and I leave tonight. We'll have the nursing home send a van for you in the morning, okay?
Dear Edith, there's so many stories I wish I could tell you, but there's only time for one. This is about what happened on the night you were born. That night, the tide went way, way out. It was the first and last time I ever saw the old house aground. There'd been an earthquake out in the middle of the ocean. They called it the lowest tide in 1,000 years. God, it smelled awful. You know, I've seen that house every day of my life. But I never thought I'd go back to it. when the fog rolled in, I lost my way. I got turned around. I started seeing things.
This is eerie.
Things I'd forgotten had ever existed. But when I saw them, they felt like old friends. That night, a lot of things came back to me. Or maybe I came back to them. Things I can't explain, but that I need you to try and...
Edith, what are you doing in here?
It's mine.
Edith!
Mom, you're gonna rip it! Let go! I kicked and screamed, but Mom dragged me to the car. I never saw Great-Grandma Edie again. The next morning, the van came to pick her up, but she was already gone. After that, we moved around a lot. We both tried to make the best of it. A few years went by. My mom didn't like to talk about it. But she started getting sick a lot. The rest happened pretty quickly. She got better for a while, and then she didn't. And then I was alone. The last Finch left alive. Until I found out about you. I'm still not sure what to tell you about all this. If we lived forever, maybe we'd have time to understand things. But as it is, I think the best we can do is try to open our eyes. And appreciate how strange and brief all of this is. This journal was supposed to be for you.
Am I being born right now?
But now I hope you'll never see it. I just want to meet you. And tell you all these stories myself. But I guess if you're reading this now, things didn't work out that way. This is where your story begins. I'm sorry I won't be there to see it. It's a lot to ask, but I don't want you to be sad that I'm gone. I want you to be amazed that any of us ever had a chance to be here at all. Good luck.
Wow. That's an ending right there. What Remains of Edith Finch. Okay, and that wraps up the walkthrough for What Remains of Edith Finch. I hope you enjoyed experiencing this story as much as I did. It was definitely a roller coaster of emotion, but I think it's an important story to experience and an important game to play. I'm gonna let the credits roll because I think it's important to, acknowledge the people that put their time in to making something like this happen. And if you want to, you can listen to me talk a little bit about what I thought about the game. If not, thank you for watching. And as always, have class, comment, like, and share, subscribe. Okay, so this game sort of falls under the umbrella of a walking simulator, which some use as a negative term for video games that aren't enough game. Not only do I disagree with that stigma, I think What Remains of Edith Finch breaks out of the genre in interesting ways. If you look past the surface story of a truly misfortunate family, you see there's a story about mental illness and self-fulfilling prophecies. There's also a weird juxtaposition to be noted with the absurdity of the house's structure stood next to the very real demons some of the family members were dealing with. You can also see the construction of the house as a perfect representation of the family's collective mental state. Most families might ignore a room for a while after a loved one passes, but they eventually move on and repurpose the room or move. Until Dawn Finch left with her children, the Finch family just kept the rooms as is, living with the specter of their family's tragic history. This is basically summed up in Edith's letter to her son. Is it better to live with the full weight of the past on you, or to avoid or otherwise live apart from the fiends of previous generations? Lastly, I want to point out how the gameplay evolves with almost each new story that unfolds. Once you enter Molly's story and begin transforming, you realize that, like memory, each tale will be subjective to each character's experience. Other standouts in terms of telling the gameplay to the character are Barbara and Sam. However, I think Lewis's story elevates this game. Having to control both sides of his story simultaneously just pushes the theme even more. It's easy to escape into a fantasy world when real life is monotonous. I'm not even sure if you can fail the fish chopping portion, but like Lewis, I kept doing it because it was what was expected of me. And I love how the camera pulled farther and farther from the fantasy Lewis the more he became detached from reality, and how the world itself became much more detailed. In summation, I very much enjoyed What Remains of Edith Finch. I'm happy that video game exists and that videos in general are able to show stories like this and be experienced like people like me. Let me know what you think about the story and anything you might get from its themes, or just comment to start a dialogue. Anyways, enjoy life and please have some class. This is Micah from Capture King saying, I hope you enjoy life.